So let's go ahead and look at this word problem. The Power Tower ride at Valley Fair takes riders to the top of a tower and drops them 60 feet at speeds reaching 80 feet per second. A function that models this ride is h equals negative 16t squared plus 80t plus 60, where h is the height in feet and t is the time in seconds. About how many seconds does it take for riders to drop from 60 feet to 0 feet? So the 60 and the 80 are already part of this equation that I have written here. Basically what that's saying is I am starting all the way up here at 60. My constant is also my y-intercept. So I'm starting at 60 and I am dropping down, and it wants me to find out how long is it going to take for me to get back down to 0, for my height to be 0. So if my height is 0, I have 0 equals negative 16t squared plus 80t plus 60. We could go ahead and we could try to factor this using the x, but I like to just go to quadratic formula right away because it will always work, and the x doesn't always work. Before, we wanted to get rid of that negative. We didn't want a to be negative. In this situation, it does not matter for us. So I know that my a is going to equal negative 16, b is going to equal 80, c is going to equal 60, and I'm going to plug it into my quadratic formula. So x equals opposite of b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times a. So again, do this piece by piece. Plug all of the numbers underneath the radical in first, or underneath the square root first. So negative 80 plus or minus the square root. If I do that, I get 10,240 divided by 2 times the negative 16 gives me negative 32. Now I'm going to actually take that square root, so I'm going to get negative 80 plus or minus. When I take the square root of 10,140, I get 101.19 divided by negative 32. And this is where you're going to split into your two equations. You're going to get negative 80 plus 101.19 divided by negative 32, and negative 80 minus 101.9 divided by negative 32. So if I put this stuff into my calculator, I end up getting x is going to equal a negative 0.66, and then x would equal a 5.66. If the question is asking me how many seconds it takes for the riders to drop, a negative number doesn't make any sense to me. So the positive number is going to be my answer, and I want to write it out with words. So I want to make sure that I write 5.66 seconds. So this last example, I'm going to help you get set up, and then I want you to go ahead and try the problem on your own, coming back and checking your answer before moving on to practice. So we have a stunt person attached to a safety harness that drops from a height of 210 feet. A function that models the drop is h equals negative 16t squared plus 210. H is the height in feet and t is the time in seconds. But how many seconds does it take to drop from 210 feet to 30 feet? So here's my picture. We're starting up here at 210 feet. That's my C value. And here I'm dropping, and it wants to know when will I hit 30 feet. So it wants to know when I'm going to hit here. So instead of our height being 0, our height is actually going to be 30, because that's what the question is looking for. How long does it take for me to get to 30? So our first step, remember, is that we have to be set equal to 0. Right now I'm set equal to 30. So I need to get that 30 away. So I'm going to subtract 30 and subtract 30. So I'm going to have 0 equals negative 16t squared. And because these are both constants, I can actually do 210 minus 30 and get a positive 180. And now I can set up my A equals B equals C equals, plug it into the quadratic, and get my final answer. So you go ahead and do that and then come back and check your work. It's a little messy here, but I got a negative 3.35 as one of my answers and a 3.35 as my second one. So remember, if it's asking for how many seconds, it doesn't make sense to have a negative number. So the 3.35 is going to be my final answer. If you didn't get that, please again make sure that you come and chat with me before moving on to your assignment.